and get started. So I'd like to welcome Kathy and Nicole officially to the webinar. Good morning, ladies, or good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Lisa. Really appreciate you kicking things off as always. And Nicole, we're thrilled to welcome you to Business as Unusual. Let's start with your very eclectic career. You started in more of a B2C space and now in manufacturing. Could you just talk a little bit about your career journey and then, your current role at Brady Corporation?
Yeah, so my journey started off in unusual. I was a political science major, clearly not doing a thing with that right now, but that's all right. So, I started off in agency world and found my way to Sears, and probably started a bit before online was a big deal, and really started in catalog. And so obviously that morphed into online, and spent a good amount of time, 15 plus years at Sears, building up their digital capabilities, their website, the influence, website had on store sales, etc. And that's really where I got so much great experience that has kept with me and helped me learn along the way. From Sears, I went to an automotive technology company, and then about 4.5 years ago, I came to Brady as VP of Global eCommerce and Marketing, and have been able to kind of take my learnings from B2C over into a B2B world, and just so thrilled to be at a company that is 100+ years old and continues to innovate and to lean forward into digital. So I have a great team, there's great people, great products. So really happy to be here in Milwaukee at Brady.
Yeah, that's so cool. We work with a lot of businesses that are, 50 to 100 years old, and it's just fascinating to see the evolution of those organizations. And so, what we talk a lot about at Red Caffeine is, the lanes for growth, growth opportunities, and technology is, I believe, top of mind for many organizations today. I just was watching a webinar and read the mid-market indicator report that's put out by the National Mid-Market Association, and they say that organizations are investing heavily in digital transformation, and those of us who worked a lot in manufacturing are like, yes, it's time. So, but I mean, we've seen it across all sectors, and this is such a huge opportunity, definitely been accelerated by what's gone on in the last few years. But why don't you step back? I think, we narrowed the target of this conversation to e-commerce, but digital acceleration is really important to manufacturers. And maybe you could just step us through, that broader landscape of why.
Yeah. So first of all, when I joined here, like I said, 4.5, 5 years ago, I would say Brady was really ahead of the game. Before I even got here, they started their first website, transactional website, in 2010. So think about that. 11 years ago, not only was it ahead of the time for manufacturers, or for B2B, but certainly for manufacturers to have a transactional website. So it just goes to show, Brady's commitment and the understanding of how important digital is to a customer experience and to the company as a whole. And I think the reason that Brady's behind it, and we continue to support the acceleration of it, are a couple of these statistics. And I'm sure all of you have seen a ton of statistics throughout your time, but for me, these three really drive the why behind what we do. So obviously 90% of B2B customers research 2 to 7 sites before purchasing. So when you think about that, if you're a manufacturer, if you're a distributor, whatever the case may be, most likely a customer is going to be touching your website in their evolution of research. 2, 80% of the buyer journey takes place online. Okay, it could be researching, it could be downloading a piece of content, watching a video, whatever it is. But the journey takes place online, which feeds into the next piece, which is really, you think about this percent of how many people, of manufacturers, that manufacturers digital influences offline behavior. And that's such an important takeaway, because at the end of the day, it's online influences the behavior offline. It doesn't mean that the transaction happens online, because most likely it doesn't. And so to be able to take those three pieces and think about how you create your digital journey is important. So for me, if there's one takeaway that from all of this, from this 45 minutes we have together, it's this piece that 67% of purchases are influenced by digital. So that's really how we think about it here. So when I think about the acceleration of Brady, it's that, probably in the past 5 years, we really did focus, prior to 5 years ago, focused a lot on the transactional website. And we continue to do that. We continue to think about what type of content do we need to have? How do we get customers to product quicker in the funnel? Is our checkout experience the best? And so that's absolutely the right thing to do. But we've really, in the past 4 to 5 years, broadened our definition of what e-commerce and digital means. So it's not just about short-term transactional revenue, although extremely important.
Yes.
We've really expanded upon thinking about, the longer-term customer relationships that your website can provide. It's about, leveraging your brand. It's about self-service. Customers want to come to your website and they may not want to buy. They just want to see where their order is. They may want to see what they had purchased before. So all of those things are what really defines how we think about our website and all of the things that it has to power. And that really drives our go forward strategy.
Yeah, I agree. I think business to business buyers are really expecting the same type of buying experience that they have, in their personal lives. And so it's absolutely translated over to how we think about business. But like, I know pre your tenure at Brady, the e-commerce site existed. Can you talk a lot? You guys have made a lot of investment in digital, but can you talk a little bit about the roadmap and where you kind of started and what were some of the key technologies that were in your stack strategy and how you prioritize?
Yeah, so obviously, I think anybody who's in e-commerce has 80,000 things they want to do, and there's not enough time or resource to do it. We are. That's not unlike us here. We have 1,000 things we want to do. And my team laughs at me. They're always asking me to prioritize, and I just want it all done. But the reality of it all is that we do, we take the goals that I just laid out and really create kind of a scorecard of everything we want to do. What's the weight of it? How does it impact each of those different avenues and the goals that we have? So we've started off, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, looking at our platform, understanding if we had the latest version of everything, added a lot of features, functionalities. Recently, we spent a lot of time with internal search updates, product recommendation updates. And so there's been a lot of changes to our website, but I would say, in addition to the changes to the website, we're really focused on how our salespeople, how our customers, how our distributors can use the websites as well. And I'm sorry, our lights go off and on in our sustainability efforts here, so they'll come back on eventually.
No problem. We love that. That we were just talking before we joined about all the technology in your office. So
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, and you mentioned a bit about, your stakeholders in this process. So, what was some of the highs and lows of engaging the different like distributors and some of your sales team in that process?
Yeah, so I would say, kind of the elephant in the room here, and I think probably every single company, is, the words of channel conflict that has carried throughout my career. And I would say, when I started here, it was no different. And I have a lot of thoughts on channel conflict, but I will just kind of keep a few and give some suggestions. So first of all, channel conflict, if you're selling in multiple channels, that always comes up. I would say, however, that for me, you really have to think about what channel conflict is. To me, it's a very internal focused issue, and we need to call it like it is. It's the customer does not care. So when you think about, if a customer, lots of people going back to college, maybe you want to buy a coffee maker. So you go on the Keurig website, you do a lot of research, you find what you want, you're going to Target for other things that's most convenient for you to buy the coffee maker at Target because they did research over here, bought over here. At the end of the day, the customer's walking out with what she wanted. I can guarantee you she's not thinking about, oh my God, I wonder who just got credit for my coffee maker purchase. Was it the manufacturer? Was it Target? Are they upset? How does that work? The customer does not care at all. And so when we think about channel conflict, if you're really a company that's focused on customer experience, that needs to be what you're focused on. And you need to work through the hurdles of how channel conflict could potentially be an issue. That being said, I understand it's a real thing. I completely understand it. But if you go back to, if you look at this slide where you see so much of how online influences offline behavior, that's part of the story I have here and have had in my career, is that there's data to prove how much that actually helps positively impact other channels. So for example, Forrester did a study a few years ago about manufacturers who sell direct and the impact it had on distributors and other channels. And at the end of the day, manufacturers who are selling direct, it actually has a very positive influence on distributors. It has a positive influence on the brand. And so it actually, it highlights, it helps your other surrounding channels when you have a great website and can provide all of that great information. Now, the third thing I would say, when you think about our internal sales folks, any of the key stakeholders, is I'm always big on then showing what that really means. So if you can go to the next slide. So this is a super messy slide, and it's purposefully messy because this is a very messy journey. And this is a real life customer journey example that I bring up a lot when I talk to our internal stakeholders, our sales folks, etc., to really show how many different channels a customer touches. In this particular example, a customer went to Google and typed in label, cabling, and wiring. Went to our page that has a lot of great information about what type of printer you may need for if this is the application you're looking for. From there, the customer decides to go to our product page, and you see that here on the left-hand side. Now, customer decided, you know what, I'm not too sure if this is exactly what I want, so they engaged in one of our calculators that walks them through a series of questions, and then we'll be able to tell them how much money they could save, time, etc. So all great, but the customer in this case decided, you know what, it's a $14,000 purchase, which is a big purchase for us. I think I want to engage with a chat rep. So our chat rep engaged with a particular customer, and through a series of back and forth, they decided it was best to have a salesperson talk to this particular customer. Salesperson reached out to the customer, had a great conversation, and the customer ended up buying. But the customer didn't buy on our website. The customer bought in a different channel, and that's completely fine. What helped is that we had a lot of different pieces of information that really helped the customer determine what they want, and at the end of the day, they needed to talk to somebody else. So the power of thinking about online and how that really helps so many partners around you is so incredibly powerful and key, at least for our strategy here. And I would suggest, if other companies aren't thinking about it, that they should.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is your viewpoint now? I mean, I love that you've described this very nonlinear sales experience, because we also create a lot of buyer journeys for our, and frankly, they're not going to follow step A through, Z. It's some people may start at, step F. And so like, where do you see the website fitting in now in today's buying landscape?
Yeah, so obviously, digital was really important pre-COVID and is more so now. So if you can go to the next slide. So McKinsey did a study this past year, and they had a lot of great insights. This is just pulled from that survey. But at the end of the day, we knew online and digital capabilities was important. COVID has just accelerated that. Twice as likely customers are twice as likely to leverage digital than were pre-COVID. In certain countries, UK and Spain, they're 3 times as likely to use digital. Talked about self-service tools. That is more important now than ever. And at the end of the day, it's about the customer experience online. And more likely than not, if you have a really bad experience, you are going to lose the customer. So when we think about the website, we take all of these things into consideration, and the weight of the website is now greater than ever. And the other piece that makes the website even more noteworthy than previously is the fact that the selling model has changed. So the next slide. So when we think about remote selling, obviously all of our salespeople, and I'm sure many others, haven't been able to visit their customers in a long period of time. And so we've had to find a way to make sure that we could still engage with our customers, mostly using digital means. And so remote selling, from what McKinsey has found, is remote selling is going to stay around even post-COVID. So 75% of decision makers in the B2B world say that remote selling is equally or even more effective for their buyers as well. It's less time spent, it's more effective time spent. And then the other piece is that 20 to 30% of B2B buyers, they only want to fully integrate and interact with buyers, for a full life cycle in a very small portion of time. So that's when you really, really have to think about how your salespeople can engage with your website, use the tools, think about how they can do remote selling, how they can have conversations, pre and post meetings, and follow up. And that's really the focus we've had for a long time, but more so over the past 18 months, of how to make our website more of a selling tool to both our sales associates and even to distributors as well.
Yeah, I mean, I always find that as a kind of a funny thing when you launch a website, you don't really onboard the team to how it integrates into the process of helping them close deals, or the sales team specifically. But I love some of the data points. I think part of the thing that we were trying to help is provide some ideas for people to get buy-in at their organizations for, digital investment. It may not be e-commerce, all the way through to a buying purchase, but creating e-commerce like experiences, content that really engages people around products. But tell us a little bit about, some of the things that you guys did to involve different stakeholders that are, involved in the sales process into how you were redefining the customer experience.
Yeah, so we involve our sales team a lot, and they are really fully invested in our digital capabilities, which I would say is, such a great thing here, is that our salespeople have been engaged, have been giving us a lot of good feedback on the types of tools, content, et cetera, that they need to be effective salespeople. So one of the things that we ended up doing, that we just launched a few months ago, was our virtual showroom, which you'll see on the next slide. So this is a really interesting feature for us, and kind of the evolution of how we got here. So this really was precipitated by COVID. So when all of our trade shows shut down, and trade shows, I'm sure like many of you all, is a very important tool in your toolkit to have customer relationships, show products, etc. So when in-person trade shows were shut down, we decided to go on the part of creating a virtual environment. And the first notion was, okay, we can use this at regular trade shows. We can have our own personal trade shows. It's a prospecting tool, and so we set forth about going about this. But I would also say you're going to see in a little bit that the value of this was so much greater than we ever anticipated. But a few things, Kathy, to your question of how salespeople were involved in this, is that we had a group of salespeople that were 100% involved in how this was built, how many industries we showcased. And so if you want to go to the next slide, you're going to see here that we have 10 different industries showcased in our virtual showroom. Brady sells to hundreds of different industries. So as you can imagine, there's a whole host of industries we could have chosen. But in conversations with our sales team, this is what we landed on. So this was not, a marketing set project. This was absolutely in collaboration with our sales folks to determine that this was the right set to go after. So this virtual showroom, as you see here, this is the first page. I would also say it is gated. So we do capture, who enters our showroom up front. Not a big gating process, but it is. And so when you first enter our showroom, you are going to see multiple industries that you could go into. There's some voiceovers, there's some floor plans, et cetera, to help you navigate. But it's pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. And so what you would do is if you determine that you want to enter a different industry. And by the way, I would also want to say that this showroom can either be a customer on their own, or it could be a salesperson leading the customer through it and really showing them around, a virtual showroom, just like we would in a real showroom. So if you go to the next slide, we are going to enter into our data center. So as you can see here, there are hover spots on all of our different industries. And the hover spot, if you just want to take a look to see what's going to be behind the door, if you will, you will see what is there and can help you navigate through that. So I'm going to welcome you into our data center room. So if you want to go to the next slide. So this is what it looks like. It is a 360 view of a data center. And again, I will tell you that this is all custom built. And how it was built, what we showed to make sure we were capturing a very realistic environment was really driven by our sales team. They are the experts, so they helped drive all of this for us. So within the showroom, you can do a 360 view and you see the hot spots there, and you can determine which thing you really want to engage more in. And again, the showroom is really about showcasing Brady products and solutions for different industries. This isn't about buy. This is really more at the top of the sales funnel to educate our customers on all of the products and solutions we can offer, to help them with education, etc. So what you're going to see when you're in our showroom is a lot of content related information. So you see information over to your right of what is in each hotspot. But then if you want to narrow down, and you can move into the next slide. This is just one example. So here's hotspot number 2. And if you click into it, this is just a small portion, but it'll show all of the pieces of content that will help a customer better understand how, in this case, our printer, the BMP41, can help in the data center, can help label wires and cables. So again, it's about getting to the content. In some cases, maybe a salesperson will just be able to talk through it and they don't necessarily need to engage in the content, but it's a choice, it's an option. Now, if you go to the next slide, if a customer wants to engage with us more and go deeper into the funnel to really get closer to purchase, we also make it very simple for them as well. So these are just a couple of the buttons you see here. So if a customer wants to view our products, You can click on it and it goes directly to our website. It'll land you on this page right here, which is thanks for visiting our virtual showroom, trying to make that experience very seamless, not feel like we're pogo sticking around, making sure the customer is trusting where they're going. And our web page is all about how our virtual showroom is set up. So you can dive deeper into the different applications and different products, go to the product page, and if you so choose, you can then check out. Other things you can do is request a product demo or a sample, which is very, very simple for a customer to do. The thing we added on, later in the process, and this was absolutely a result from our sales folks, they really felt like we needed our chat button there. We hadn't even planned on it, but that was a last minute addition specifically from sales. And so we now have implemented our chat button on the showroom. So if a customer wants to engage in our chat functionality, if a salesperson isn't with them, they can do a live chat. So that's all been really, really important to us. And so lots of different ways to engage in Brady products, a live person, content, where you want to buy, etc. And kind of to round out how this has worked for us, if you want to go to the next slide, is there are a lot of kind of surprising use cases we realized in developing this showroom. As we talked about, we really wanted to think about a sales enablement tool, a digital tool to be leveraging in this type of environment. So that makes sense, and we continue to drive sales enablement, customer engagement, brand awareness, all make sense. But the two pieces at the bottom were kind of a great surprise and a great thing that we kind of came upon, is that some of our sales folks were like, this is really great for distributor training. So I'm sure, like many of you, we have a lot of really great distributor partners, and this has been a great tool for giving information to our distributors about all of the different applications, industries, etc., that Brady can help with. So distributors have really had a big play in this as well, and it's a tool for distributors. And I would say the last piece of it, and it's certainly not overlooked here, is internal training. From salespeople to marketing people to whoever it is coming on board at Brady, this has been a wonderful sales training tool that is really in a virtual environment that can help everybody understand again how Brady can fit into different applications and environments. So it's been a great tool. We've been up for a couple of months, continue to learn, but there's been some really positive surprises. And I would say the partnership with sales has been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, those happy outcomes that that were a bit unexpected. And then as well, like, what a better and more engaging training environment, maybe leveling up some older users on technology and how, that enhancing their skill set. But, I'd much rather walk through a virtual showroom than read a Word doc about how product information. So that's pretty cool. How do you integrate customer feedback into some of your digital experiences?
Yeah, great question. And I would say I am really passionate about customer feedback. The team here is as well. One of the things, we have customer feedback tools. All of that feedback goes real time into a chat room that not only our digital team has access to, but also our engineering team. So we get real-time feedback that pops up in our chat room all the time. Depending what the feedback is, if there's a bug that is really important, it needs to be addressed right away, we do it. If it's a customer issue that needs to be followed up on, we provide that to customer service. And the third thing, we will put it on our roadmap, or it'll validate or increase the value of things on our roadmap, depending what customer feedback we get. So we absolutely look at feedback in a real-time basis.
Yeah, one more follow-on, because we got a great question from one of our attendees, but in terms of like online reputation, are you guys really concerned about sort of Google reviews or any of the online reputation aspects, and is that factoring into your plan as well? So not just curated feedback, but that, what's going on the third party feedback sites?
Yeah, absolutely. We do look at our reviews in other places where we do sell. It does influence, even I would say our products and how, we talk about our products, and that we aren't, in many cases, we find that, people are looking for a feature that we haven't called out in our product descriptions. So we absolutely use that in terms of our content. And in some cases, I would even probably say our product roadmap. But as far as, brand reputation, will always be concerned with that. Brady is a very, very strong brand. We're a global leader, and we'll continue to really focus on that brand awareness.
Perfect. So Neil asks, and kind of going back to sales enablement and customer engagement, in terms as when a manufacturer is expanding its e-commerce effort, what strategies can they implement to ensure that they're like long-term traditional sales relationships and customers feel that personal contact and connection, and not just become an online ordering customer?
Yeah, I think it depends, on how your organization is set up and how you think about it. Certainly if somebody wants to purchase online, what is the strategy after that? How do you continue to have that conversation? Is it a salesperson following back up with them? Is it, outreach through email or other means? I think it really is about what your particular strategy is, what you want it to be, what your resource capabilities are even. And I would say probably the second piece of that is, personalization. It's a very, I would probably say overused term in some cases, because it means so many different things to different people. But how do you continue to personalize your experience? If it's, a different type of online experience for one person versus another, if it's even just if you log in to your account section on the website, do you have all the pertinent information for them so they don't feel like they're just another customer, that you are giving them their personalized type of content that you're looking for? So I would say there's a lot of different things you can do, but it really comes back to what is your overall strategy when it comes to that.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've got a lot of things integrated that really speak to the different buying choices. We've got so many, ways to buy today, and it feels like you've got touch points at all those different stages, as well as optional touch points, whether it's a phone call or in person, or midnight buying purchase.
Yep.
So we do have a couple other questions from the audience that I'm going to get into. One is pretty technical, from Mark. Can customers architect complex 3D configurations of some of your customizable products you offer? Is there any configuration opportunity in your product line?
Yeah, there is. So we do a lot of custom products, particularly custom labels. And so we do have the ability for customers to create custom labels, signs, etc. But in transparency, that's a difficult thing as well. Custom products on any website is difficult. But we continue to focus on that because it is important to our customers. And we continue to have that on future roadmap additions is more custom products and more customizable experiences.
Another great question. So what role does analytics and data play in Brady's e-commerce and digital transformation?
It's the backbone. So I would just say, I have been schooled in my career prior to this of how important data is. And so it is important here. It has been for a long time and continues to be. So we have a lot of reports and insights that we look at and leverage to how we prioritize, where we need to be focusing our efforts, etc. And really, I would say the other piece is where we need to expand in certain categories as well. So I would say the power of data and the power of how we think about it is certainly the backbone and will continue to be the backbone for Brady going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I loved how you spoke to some of the sentiment that you're, that you're leveraging to, to either making a quick fix on something that's not working, or it's getting baked into your roadmap long term. So I think we've never been in a time where we were getting so many insights and being able to use them effectively to make changes in our organization, our products. So it is pretty cool to be able to integrate that.
I'd love to throw in our next question here as we transition, because there's a question that came in via chat and our QA option that looked somewhat similar. So one from LinkedIn for you, Nicole, as I'm looking at my other screen here. How much emphasis do you put on lead generation through social media platforms, given the demographics of typically an industrial B2B supplier or manufacturer?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, we have been focused on social media and really focusing and leveraging that, I'd say, for the past few years, but we still have a lot of work to do. And I think we're still learning. For us, social media isn't necessarily about lead gen. That's not the goal. It's really more about engagement. And as we learn, we'll continue to change our strategy. But I would say the other piece of social media for us, at least, has been, really talking to the rest of the organization, particularly sales, of how they should be using social media, how they should be using LinkedIn, thinking about what their profiles should be, how to leverage contacts, et cetera, et cetera. So when we think about social media, it's not just about the customer facing side, but it's how our internal folks are using it as well.
Yeah, great answer. Kind of a more loftier question. How did the organization align culturally with the digital transformation? It sounds like it's been a mission, preceding you coming on board, but, talk a little bit about the culture and who sets the vision and how does everybody adapt to all these technical changes?
Yeah, in my career, kind of the e-commerce person in a multi-channel company was kind of the persona non grata in any meeting for a long time, because of course you're cannibalizing sales, et cetera, et cetera. But I would say, again, because Brady is really leaning into digital, the buy-in from everybody has been so great that it hasn't been too much of a cultural issue here. But what I would also say, what's been really important to the success has been our sales leaders. Our sales leaders have really partnered with us to understand what we're trying to do and then give us the feedback of maybe where the obstacles are and how we can make it better. So I give a ton of credit to our sales leaders, who have really been a tremendous partner to my team and me of how we're going about this journey. If I wouldn't have that buy-in, if I wouldn't have been able to create those types of great relationships, it would have been a more difficult road ahead. But I have been really blessed with having leaders and teams that understand what we're trying to do. And at the end of the day, it really helps them do better at their jobs of leveraging digital.
We talk about sales and marketing alignment so much. It's so absolutely important. I do feel like we've gotten a lot more, traction just because we've had to in the last year or so. But, it sounds like Brady's a little bit of a unicorn, because we don't always, especially at a larger organization, hear that those teams are effectively working together in tandem. So
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Lisa, how are we getting some other questions?
We are getting some other questions. So I want to ask one from Bill, who's watching via Zoom. Nicole, how do you recommend striking a balance between being audience-centric content, so like FAQs, and more company-centric content and features, so your customer feels like they're getting value and not always just a sales pitch? So I know you created the great virtual experience, but any other words of advice on how you went about that, knowing your sales team and your marketing team were so aligned through this process?
Yeah, another good question. And actually, prior to this, I just came from a meeting as we kind of talked about tone, et cetera, as we talk about our products, and really striking the balance of making sure that we have the right features and benefits as we talk about our products. And to be honest, there is pushback. There is that kind of conflict of whenever you have a product, do you want to say all the thousands of features and benefits that really the customer doesn't need to know right then and there, but how do you boil it down? And that's something that we continue to kind of work through, but really making sure that we kind of are focusing on the right benefits to the customer. What problem are you trying to solve? And if you start there, then you can narrow down what are the most important features and benefits. But the question is valid, the question is real. It's something that we continue to really try to hone in on, is just focusing on those key benefits for a customer. Again, if you're a customer-centric organization, that's where you need to start. How does it address the customer problem or the customer need?
Yeah, and going back to the virtual showroom, I'm really curious about, you've got 9 industries demonstrated. Is the buying behavior, the challenges of the different industries really specific to those industries? Or do you see, some shared common pain points?
Yeah, there's certain shared pain points, but the types of products they need and the why behind the products is very different.
Okay.
And, just take, for example, our floor tape. Our floor tape can be used, in one place, for one reason, but then if you put it into a food and beveraging processing plant, if it's cold, if it's whatever, you need the tape to be different. So there's different use cases for a product dependent upon the industry. And that's why we really needed to think about how we showcased our products in a more customer-centric manner.
Yeah, I think that is a huge challenge for manufacturers, because they tend to sell into so many channels, and it is that nuance that makes somebody feel like you understand my problem.
Yeah.
Any other questions go ahead.
I do have other questions. So thank you, Janet. I see yours in the QA option. We're going to hold because that's a great last question for Nicole. But coming from LinkedIn, Aaron was wondering, what was the most surprising element to you, Nicole, when you started on that sales and marketing alignment, knowing that was a process? Was anything uncovered? Did you learn anything unexpected? Tell us more about that, because we know that is typically a struggle point for any business.
Yeah, unexpected. I don't know that it was unexpected, because I just, again, based on my experience, I had just assumed that kind of the e-commerce channel would be a concern. I would probably say the unexpected was how approachable, how amenable people were to this concept. Again, walking into a company that we talked about is 100+ years old, sells a lot through great distributor partners. That's a big thing, to be figuring out how to leverage your digital capabilities more. So my surprise was probably how open everybody was to thinking about digital, to thinking about e-commerce. And that honestly for me was surprising. And I would say also there's a lot of companies that have sales and marketing, and it makes sense. There's a bit of conflict. I can tell you here, it has really been a partnership.
It's fantastic. I think, in my experience early in my career, I was fortunate to work on an e-commerce site that combined direct sales with a distribution channel. And it was always a concern. I mean, all our marketing efforts never really, made the distribution channel feel like outsiders, but it was an effort to not be competitive with, our external sales force.
Yeah. And I would say that's the other thing, we did do a lot is, we really highlighted our salespeople of when they were using digital, how they had wins. And again, it could be through distributors, it could be whatever. We really would highlight sales folks who leverage digital to a success rate. And I think, like everybody else, when you see somebody else having success, you want to figure out how you can leverage it. And so we do highlight our sales teams and of when they use digital and how they've had success at that.
Yeah, those shared learnings are really important. And do you guys have sort of a platform for sharing that information out? And
Yeah, we do. Either if it's, through, your normal meeting cadence, if it's through sales meetings, whatever the case may be, we absolutely have. And we even have, a sales council that is strictly for marketing and digital, that we will go to them to get feedback, to get input, to share different types of best practices. So that's one of the other ways we continue to involve our salespeople.
All right. Well, let's ask this last great question. What's next for Brady's digital transformation?
Yeah, so I would say, one, we will never, ever, ever be done. I will never, ever be happy with happy is too strong a word. I will never be content with where we are. So for me, there just continues to be so much work ahead for us. I continue to really focus on thinking how digital can impact the entire selling process. That is just the hot button for me, because I think it can have such positive impact in so many parts of the organization. So that's where I see Brady and digital going forward, is really how it enables other selling outside of the exact transactional website. So we'll continue to about sales enablement, making a great customer experience online, and there's still a lot of work ahead.
So, I couldn't agree more. It's super exciting time to be in our business space and work in marketing and digital and technology. And there's such infinite possibility. And I'm excited to see more and more manufacturers taking that next step in their digital transformation roadmap. It feels like we've been talking about it for a really long time, and it's not just manufacturers, but we definitely have seen people, really grasp onto it in the last year and be excited to take it to the next level too. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, I have to echo that as well. Thank you so much, Nicole. And thank you to all of our audience, whether you were attending via LinkedIn, Facebook, or Zoom, for all of your amazing questions today. For those that may have questions for Nicole later, or perhaps you're watching our recording at some point, you can reach out to Nicole on LinkedIn if you've got any other questions, or definitely follow Brady Group. I'm sure they will share more about what they're doing, and you can watch for Nicole's next digital transformation there. So Nicole, again, thank you so much for your time and all of your great ideas today.
Thank you.
So gearing up, we're continuing our business as unusual webinar series on September 23rd, where we'll be inviting Chitra Iyer, the principal consultant and co-founder at Kairos Partners, who's really going to dive more into data analytics. So we're very excited about this session. Chitra has over 15 years of data-driven insights and recommendations. So she's going to share more about digital transformation and how it can support your business growth, how to build the right channel mix, so looking at your marketing, and then how to learn, test, and optimize each one of those channels for obviously optimal performance. So you can go ahead and register on our website. We'll also, again, be live streaming via LinkedIn and Facebook. So stay tuned for more information. All right. And also we want to share, we're very excited as the world starts to open up and we continue to watch, of course, where COVID is at currently. We are planning on doing our 2021 People Plus People Conference, and very excited to be bringing this back after last year's hiatus. So Kathy, would you like to share a little bit more about our upcoming event?
Yeah, absolutely. It's taking place in October, October 21st. It's just going to be a one-day event. But we've got some really great topics around revenue generation systems. So we're going to, a couple of the topics include, how client advocacy leads to revenue growth, really talking about the end-to-end customer experience and some really interesting ideas you can integrate into your CX strategy. We will be also talking about the talent that you really need to drive growth. So, there's a lot of investment that needs to take place in your sales strategy, and it's really tough to hire right now. So that's going to be a really interesting session around who you might need and what that future proofing landscape looks like for driving your revenue growth. And then really excited about Rob Johnson. He was a former TV anchor. If you're from the Chicago market, you would likely remember him from a few years back, and he's going to talk to us about, effectively presenting on and off screen. So, how do you hone your skills? And like to Nicole's point, where we don't think digital meetings are going to go away. They're just going to be integrated in the experience long term. So how do you convey things well, both on screen and off screen? So very, very thrilled. So go to peoplepluspeopleconf.com to register, and really excited to do a live event again. It's been a long time.
And I would say, if you haven't been to one of our past People Plus People conferences, the energy in the room is amazing. We are condensing a lot in just one short day, but the takeaways from this, not only if you're a business leader, but a human resources management to someone who's a middle manager at a company, there's something in this conference for everyone. So highly encourage you to take a look and definitely join us on October 21st. All right, so as we close out today, thank you so much again for everyone who attended. Thank you to Nicole for being our guest speaker. If this is your first Business as Unusual webinar series, we hope you found the content extremely valuable. You can visit our website, caffeine.com, where we have replays of all of our past webinars, and you can also find out more information about upcoming events. If you'd like to hear more about how our growth consultancy model can help you grow your business, you can also reach out to us at connect@redcaffeine.com. So with that, thank you again to everyone.